There's the moon, everybody, through the telescope. This was my first ever telescope. I was really lucky when I got this. I got this second hand. It's a Bressa Galaxia. It's the old version. The new version of this comes with a carbon fibre tube, which is very nice, but essentially they are still the same. It has a 114mm mirror, and it's actually really well made. This is all cast. It's solid piece of metal for the spider, which makes such a difference for collimation. It really does. It makes the telescope really stable. But the one thing which lets it down is this plastic focuser, which flexes, particularly when you put a heavy eyepiece in there, or maybe a phone mount so that you can do projection photography from the eyepiece. This flexes and you lose your collimation. But basically, this whole telescope is really, really nice. It's really good to use. So I've decided to improve it by adding a metal focuser from SV Burney. This focuser here came in a lovely cardboard box, which is very nice. And in there it was padded, and there was a plastic bag, and you can see that the focuser was in there. Now I've actually had this for a few months and I haven't proceeded with fitting it, so I thought as I'm doing some outreach in the next week or so, I would fit it, because the last time I used this telescope I noticed that it was a bit rubbish. So I wanted to improve it, and the actual optics are really good, but this focuser is the one thing on this lovely telescope which lets it down. And the other thing that I really wanted was the ability to lock the position of the focusing. And you can see here that this focuser has a lock, so you can tighten it, because so often when you're with young people and they're looking through a telescope, they will grab the telescope, and firstly that obviously makes it shoot off, but secondly it changes the focus. So if I can make that locked, then when they do grab the telescope, it won't move as much, which would be great. And the other thing I'm hoping is it will keep its collimation better. Now, this telescope is just for visual, and it's very much a beginner's telescope, but it's great. It's really good. And if it wasn't for this, I wouldn't have even got into this hobby. So there's a lot to be said for a good telescope when it's set up for, you know, capturing people's imagination and keep getting them into the hobby. So what I've done so far is I've fitted the actual focuser, and I'll show you how I did that in a few moments. I just need to give this mirror a little clean. It's kind of dirty, so I'm going to give that a clean, and this one as well. And then I think I'll put the whole thing back together again. It's very important to take your time to make sure you do a nice, accurate job. Of course, accuracy is key with any metal work. I then very carefully checked that the focuser would fit into the new hole, making sure that it wasn't rubbing at all when you adjust the focuser. And again, it's important to take your time with drilling the holes to ensure maximum accuracy. new SVBONY focuser is now fitted and looking really neat. It's rock solid, does not move at all, which is great. Very happy. And it has collimated okay. You can see the secondary mirror in there, which is great. And it's looking very neat, much neater than my last one. And the whole scope is now fully assembled as well. So if I just compare the two together, it's a much nicer unit. Really, really nice. Very pleased with that. This scope is only for visual use and for doing things like outreach, but this has always let it down. So I'm very pleased that I've now got a decent focuser on this lovely telescope, and I'm looking forward to using it. So I've rigged the telescope outside, and we're currently using a Celestron phone mount there and just an SVBONY zoom eyepiece, and we're currently looking at Jupiter, which is just up there, and it looks pretty sensational. I'm really pleased with how stable the focuser is. It doesn't move at all, and being able to lock off the focuser has made a huge difference. Now the moon is just up there, and so is Venus. So I will have a look at the moon in a moment, and maybe Venus. Oh, Venus is just going behind a tree there, so we've just lost Venus. But yes, let's have a look through this amazing telescope. And it wouldn't be right to use a telescope without looking at the king of the planets. There's a bit of Jupiter for you. There's the moon, everybody, through the telescope. Let's move around a bit. You do forget sometimes that literally just taking a telescope and looking at the moon is an incredibly nice thing to do. It's just a really nice thing to do.